to episode 7 of the Human Classroom. And I'm excited to be here with you today. My goodness, 7 episodes. It's awesome. So, one of the questions I find myself coming back to over and over again as we've been talking is this. What happens when the teacher doesn't belong? This is the focus of our episode today because belonging isn't something that teachers create alone. It's something that communities should be practicing together. We ask educators to create classrooms where students feel safe, where curiosity is encouraged, where regulation is supported, where mistakes become opportunities, right, for learning, where every child knows that they matter. And this is such a beautiful and precious space to create, right? But somewhere along the way, you start to ask yourself, who creates that space for the teachers? You see, because belonging isn't something you just simply turn on at 8 o'clock when you get into the building and turn off when the bell rings, right? It's not a performance. It's an experience. And if we expect teachers to model belonging every single day, while they themselves feel isolated, disposable, unseen, or constantly evaluated, we're asking them to pour from a cup that is never being allowed to be refilled. I want to be clear about something, though, with this episode. It's not about asking teachers to sacrifice more or just suck it up. If anything, we're asking teachers to carry far more and far too much already. Teachers are expected to be instructors, counselors, behavior specialists, curriculum writers, technology experts, parents, case managers, data analysts, on top of their regular everyday lives, okay? This is their job. We take their career and put that on their regular identity too, okay? And now we're also asking them to be solely responsible for creating belonging? How? Belonging was never meant to be one person's responsibility. It is that thing that communities are supposed to build together. You see, we all contribute to it. Students, teachers, parents, administrators, school boards, professional developments, school culture, all of these are contributors to belonging. You see, because healthy classrooms don't happen because one extraordinary teacher Miss Frizzles her way into everything and holds it all together. We would all love to be Miss Frizzle. We would all love to be Mary Poppins, I'm sure, of the education world, if that meant our students were happy and learning and engaged and actually exploring everything and feeling like they're belonging as a part of something. But that is not reality. Belonging happens because everyone participates in creating a culture where people matter together. You see, every person in a school teaches culture, not just our teachers. The parents, the students, the administrators, the lunch ladies, the office staff, the custodians, counselors, bus drivers, every unsung member of the school culture brings something with them, because every interaction either reinforces someone's humanity or it quietly chips away at it. Think about it. And children are learning what belonging looks like every single day. But it's not because of what we say to them. It's the unsaid things. It's because they watch us. They watch how adults have disagreements. They watch how adults apologize. They watch how adults handle their frustrations, their mistakes, how they speak about one another when they think the children aren't even listening. Culture is always being taught, even when nobody thinks they're teaching it. For me, as a parent, I have my 4 kids, and again, blended family. 2 are my biological, 2 are not. So I'm having to play catch up. There are years that I've missed of my non-biological children. And I'm having to teach them skills and morals from my side of that journey, okay? And, sometimes your kids come to you and say things like, for example, one of them came home to me and told me, my teacher is mean. And honestly, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. What was happening to the poor teacher that she's suddenly mean? But at the same time, it is my responsibility to not just choose sides. It's to listen. I need to hear my child. I need my children to always tell me when something is wrong, off, hurts their feelings, or doesn't feel right. It may seem ridiculous in the moment, but it is so important for them to know that their voice matters and they have every right to say when something doesn't feel right. Okay? And it's, God, I wish I had more buckets of patience, because this becomes a very, very fragile exercise in patience. Their voice matters, but it's also my responsibility to teach them something else. There is a balance to this. One difficult interaction doesn't define an entire person. You can tell me that your teacher snapped at you, that you feel like she picks on you, or whatever, or he. Adults have hard days. Children have hard days. Teachers have hard days. Moms and dads have hard days. Sometimes we do not communicate the way we wish we had, and we owe you an apology. Sometimes you owe us an apology. Sometimes we all miss the mark and we're bumping into walls. That doesn't automatically make them a bad or mean teacher. Just like one bad day doesn't make a bad kid. And so, I do ask my children, instead of saying your teacher is mean, maybe you should think about what happened. How did it make you feel? How do you think they were feeling? What do you think your teacher was trying to do when they said the thing that they said or acted the way that they did? Do you think something else might have been happening too that had nothing to do with you, that might have been frustrating before this all happened? Could there be another thing we haven't looked at or thought about yet? Because empathy isn't about dismissing the child's experience. It's just about kind of understanding the big picture. And kids have to be taught that. We, as adults, have to be reminded that. That is such a higher level of thinking, and it's okay that they miss this. They're kids. It's okay that we miss it, as long as we can go back and go, oh crap, I was in the wrong. Dude, I owe that person an apology because I just made assumptions about their character. And the thing is it's about recognizing that other people have experiences too. And by standing up for the communication aspect of everything, and the teachers have good days, students have good days, teachers have bad days, students have bad days, we cannot just run around calling everybody mean. How do you think that makes people feel? If you were in that person's shoes and you were snappy because somebody spilled something on your shoe and you were already annoyed and the teacher corrected you and you snapped at them, and then the teacher goes, wow, that kid's mean. And then that teacher tells everybody, oh, that kid is so mean. How do you think that would feel for you as listening to that? And my kid was like, oh, that's awful. And I was like, how do you think they feel when all you do is run around saying, they're so mean, they tell me what to do, they're so mean, they tell me what to do every day? And it's like, they're just trying to keep you safe. Do you understand that teachers' jobs are to keep us safe? And then my kid was like, oh. They stopped just immediately just saying or labeling the people in that space. Because if I don't stick up for the aspect of belonging, even within the safety of our own home, and I just go, yeah, that teacher was so mean. How dare that teacher talk to my kid? How dare that be that way? What am I actually modeling there for my kids? You see, there's something else that I believe in, and I've learned over many years. Appreciation matters. It's not kissing up, okay? I don't care what anybody says, but I tend to give teachers little gifts at holidays or at the end of the school year when I'm able to. I'm not perfect. I kind of flub this sometimes, or I just don't have the means, but it's not because I'm trying to earn favors or have my kid look like the good kid. And it's not because teachers expect it. It's because I want another human being to know that they were seen and that I've heard how little stories or anecdotes that come home from my kid mattered. Teaching is hard. It's really hard, even when my kid's the asshole. And we're going to be real here. Kids can be assholes. I love them dearly. My best friend and I giggle about this. It's like, people will definitely judge you for saying that about your child. And you're like, yeah, well, but it's true. I'm the asshole too sometimes. There are days where I'm a shit parent. I don't hide that. I make mistakes. But you are not the summation of one bad day. And I think that other people deserve to know that you see them. Teaching is hard. It can be really hard. Teachers are also raising their own families or managing their own lives, navigating policy changes that have nothing to do with their wishes or dreams or hopes or wants for what they thought being a teacher was going to be. They meet countless expectations beyond what their students need, and they're trying to support dozens, sometimes hundreds of students every single day. Sometimes the smallest gesture says, I know you're carrying a lot, but thank you. People like being appreciated. Teachers are people, and that shouldn't be controversial. And modeling appreciation is important. Again, if children see every interaction, the good and the bad, between us and other adults, they also see appreciation. Something else I think we have to be honest about is that teachers are often the face of decisions that they didn't even make, okay? Parents get the report cards, testing results, policy changes, curriculum requirements, and the teacher becomes the person standing in front of all of that. Report cards often have more than one teacher on them, just so you know. It's not just one. There's also state testing. There's also, like, one of my children is severely neurodiverse. My autistic child is in a non-traditional classroom, has multiple teachers, takes alternative assessments. Some of those assessments are ridiculous. Is it that teacher's fault that that's the assessment he has to take? No, it's not. So often, we forget their hands are tied and they're just standing there to be your punching bag. They're implementing policies that they didn't write. Half of them don't even agree with them because they live in the trenches of what a real classroom looks like, not what policy mandates think a classroom looks like. They're following testing requirements they didn't design, and they wouldn't even choose them if they had. They're working inside systems that they have zero control over. That doesn't mean we shouldn't advocate for our children. We absolutely should. But maybe we don't just come in fighting. Especially as a parent with children with IEPs, I know what advocate, like the whole, oh my gosh, it's a can of worms. Having to advocate and the advocacy aspects and the legal terminology of an IEP or a 504, it's insane. That's why they have advocates that you can actually bring on. If you've never heard of that before and you are struggling with that, reach out. I will happily discuss my experience with working with an advocate for my kid's IEP. It's less scary than you think it is, but I digress. See, advocacy doesn't have to begin with blame. One of the most powerful questions I've been learning to ask is, what can I do to support you in supporting my kid? And when I come into a classroom like that, the teachers tend to be a little less defensive. And let's be real. My child's education isn't a drop-off service. God, I could use respite care. It would be lovely to have some respite. And there are a lot of things, services we don't get. We don't qualify, we don't make enough money, or they just don't exist. But my child's education and his teachers are not the gap filler for that. This is a partnership. I know one part of my child, the teacher knows another. And neither of us, without the other, has the whole picture. But together we have more pieces of the puzzle than either of us do alone. So, by modeling this belonging, we come together. I show that the teacher belongs as a part of this world just as much as I do. You see, administrators model belonging too, and it doesn't mean that this conversation stops with parents, okay? Administrators teach belonging every single day. Imagine walking into a classroom and just saying, your test scores aren't where they need to be. How about walking into that same classroom and saying, I noticed something interesting today. How you approach this particular topic. Can you tell me about your thinking? Why you choose this method? Those are two completely different conversations. One is judgment. The other begins with curiosity. Maybe the teacher's found a new strategy helping 3 students with IEPs that finally gets them to engage and takes nothing away from their other students. Maybe movement has reduced behavioral disruptions, and so you often see students being allowed to stand or work in different ways. Maybe there's flexible seating to improve participation. Maybe there's a reason. Curiosity opens a door to collaboration. Judgment tends to close it. I mean, I think we all know this. If we want teachers to create curiosity in students, then leaders have to model curiosity with teachers. That's it. Like, you need to show what you want. Children, notice everything. One thing I love and hate about young children is that they notice absolutely everything. I taught preschool. Boy, do I know. But it is a very interesting lens to look at the world through. They notice who gets interrupted. They notice who gets thanked or who gets ignored. They notice who gets encouraged. They notice who gets grace. If students watch teachers constantly being criticized, talked over, or treated as disposable, they learn something about belonging. If they watch adults supporting one another, repairing conflict, celebrating one another's strengths, they learn something different. Children don't just hear what we teach, they watch how we live it. We use the word belonging all the time in education. It's on posters, it's mission statements, professional development slides. It is the go-to buzzword of the decade. But belonging isn't something we just announce and it happens. It's something people have to experience. The words, you belong here, mean very little if every system around them communicates otherwise. Belonging looks like being listened to, being trusted, being appreciated, being invited into decisions and discussions, being offered grace, being treated like a whole human being again and again, day after day. Because belonging isn't built through slogans, it's built through repeated experiences. And, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the question isn't, how do we teach belonging? Maybe the better question is, how do we model belonging? Because if children learn belonging long before they can define it, then they're taking in an important lesson because they're watching how parents speak about and to teachers, They're watching how teachers speak about administrators. They watch how administrators support or fail to support their staff. They watch classmates include one another. They watch adults apologize. They watch adults repair relationships. They watch adults choose curiosity instead of judgment. Every one of those moments teaches something. Belonging is not a lesson plan or a poster on the wall or a mission statement. It is a culture that is created by all of us. The parents, the teachers, the students, the support staff, the administrators, every part of this community. Every one of us contributes to the level of belonging another person experiences. Now, does that mean we're always going to get it right? Of course not. This is deeply human work. Children are still learning empathy. Adults are still learning empathy. We're all going to have days where we're impatient, distracted, overwhelmed, or just wrong. Don't tell my kids that. Actually, I admit often if I'm wrong. Sometimes it takes me a minute, but I do. I come back to them and say, you know what, I was wrong, and I'm sorry for reacting the way I did. And an apology only means something if it means I'm trying not to do it again. And I apologize, and I will try very hard not to do this again. It's important because belonging isn't about perfection, it's about repair. It's about choosing again and again to move toward one another instead of away from one another. It's the ripple effect. People talk about it because it's beautiful, but there's something else about it that's important. A ripple only exists because something disturbed still water. Every wave has a beginning. The ocean doesn't simply decide to move. Something has started the movement. And belonging works the same way. One conversation, one act of grace, one teacher who chooses curiosity, one parent who chooses partnership, an administrator who begins with questions instead of assumptions, a student who decides to include someone sitting alone. Small moments repeated often enough until they become the culture. Maybe that's how we move from a world centered on I to one centered on we. Not because one extraordinary person fixed education, but because ordinary people kept choosing one another over and over again. And maybe that's what the human classroom has been about all along. You see, it's not perfect classrooms or perfect teachers or perfect students. It's just human beings learning how to belong together. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me in the human classroom. If this conversation stayed with you, I hope you'll carry one thing into your week. How do I model belonging? Not just for my students or my coworkers, but for every person whose life briefly intersects with mine. Because belonging isn't built through one grand gesture. It's built through thousands of ordinary moments where we choose curiosity over judgment, partnership over isolation, and humanity over assumption. And maybe that's how real change begins, one ripple at a time. Until next time, drink some water, go touch some grass, tell someone that you appreciate them. And remember, without each of us, there is no belonging. Next time on The Human Classroom, we're asking a question that sounds almost ridiculously simple. Why do we walk in a line? We're going to explore the hidden curriculum of school, the lessons we teach every day without ever writing them into a lesson plan. Why do we raise our hands? Why do we walk in straight lines? Why do we have to ask permission to use the restroom? Are these lessons inherently bad? Or have we simply stopped asking why they exist in the first place? I'll see you next time on the Human Classroom.